So first off, I think when we think about all of these things, pricing, effectiveness, and viewability, we think about it from the perspective of this is an ecosystem that we're all building, and everybody that's in this room and most of the people that we talk to, whether you're on the agency side or buy side, everyone wants the same thing. So, and if we look at all of these things as a function of the demand flow, and take 2013, you had 27 billion ads delivered in video this year, which was a massive hockey stick in terms of ad delivery from video. Yet, when you talk about premium content, you talk about the inventory that marketers and advertisers want, that doesn't grow as fast, right? So pricing then tends to go down, effectiveness changes based on environment, and then viewability becomes even more of a concern because as money moves, supply changes, supply gets fabricated in areas where we can find new places to put video ads, which a lot of different companies can do, which some of those environments have a certain value, but it may not have the same value as making sure that an ad has the right context with the right piece of content. So we're looking at all of it, in that scope of this is an ecosystem and it all has to work together.
But if you look at if you look at your video syndication platform as like a series of concentric circles almost, right? Mm-hmm. Like there's like your, there's your home real estate, and then there's your owned and operated, and then it's expansive in that regard.
Sure.
Do you sort of have to have a backdoor conversation with an advertiser that they have to have diminished expectations as you travel out in those concentric circles? I mean, how do you quality control that?
Sure. So first off, I'll start by talking about viewability in that context, right? So for us, viewability it's a given when we're dealing with content and syndication, right? Our player environments and everywhere that we're distributing content and technology, it's a given that the content is viewable, right? So,
and I'm assuming requiring your player deployment has a lot to do with your ability to quality control.
100%, okay. 100%, right? Because what isn't often talked about, is what we do in the publishing community with our technology and providing the platform and the player and the products in order to show content for publishers, right? Now, of course things can happen and people can take players and do other things with the player, but we can control that ad flow if the player is in a wrong position. Now, the other side of this is when you take a look at news sites, the Huffington Post is a great example, which is in our portfolio of brands. An editor may decide to put a player that is in the middle of an article, the bottom of an article. But the reality is the technologies that are starting to develop around viewability, they may recognize that immediately as not viewable because it's below the fold. But the execution is click to play. So the way a user consumes that news site is to read the content, get to the player that's relevant to the text on the content, and then to click play and watch the video. So therefore the content, the ad, everything is in view. And so when I demoed a few of these new viewability products a year ago at CES, when a few of them were in beta, they were like, we didn't think of that, right? So what's interesting about viewability is without the standard, there's so many different methodologies and how they're calculating viewability, and it's not just about whether the ad is viewable or the content is viewable. They're taking and muddling some other factors into it, like the site environment, the text around the page, other things. So we need to have that standard in viewability. But for us, again, I think it's a given. It's something we want because it's going to shift the supply conversation to make sure that it's around content. Again, environments matter and environments change, so you can have video ads in games. You can have video ads on Pandora, right? And all of these places have a certain value. But then when you start talking about effectiveness, if you're looking at KPIs like click-through rate and completion rate, you certainly may be able to drive high completion rate, high click-through rate in some of those environments. But then if you look at an emotional response of a consumer to the brand in those environments, you may very well have a different response. A consumer may be upset that an ad is in a certain place because they want to relate video to video and want an ad next to content just like they do in television. And that's why television doesn't have this problem, right? Because content is the consistency, right? You always have content in television.
I want to shift the conversation to pricing because, you guys, I think pretty consistently are okay to say there's a shortage of premium video, right? And I mean, are you comfortable talking to some of the sort of mean, CPMs that you're seeing for premium video?
Yeah, so a couple things. One is, we absolutely think that there is a lack of premium supply. It's one of the reasons why we built the content platform that we have in order to, infuse the web with more premium programming. In terms of pricing, what we do see is from the buying and planning level of the agency community, there's a ton of confusion around the video ecosystem in terms of supply. So we definitely get put into these conversations where it's, well, listen, if you can't give me your original program, you know, with this particular talent for the $9 that I'm getting from this aggregator over here, you know, people don't necessarily equate the value of the supply the same way. Now, of course, we have what we would call the full stack in the business, especially after the acquisition of Adapt TV, where in an exchange we have all those types of supply, and we can play in any type of price bucket depending on what the advertiser wants and depending on the type of effectiveness they're looking for their ad, whether it's reach or some other measurement.
And how about those mean CPMs?
Those mean CPMs, well, I think the reality is, again, it goes back to, and I hate to say this, but you know, you get what you pay for, and I think the reality.
Not getting a number is what you're telling me.
No, you're not getting a number. The reality is, I'll give you a couple numbers. I'll give you a couple numbers, but the reality is we all want a better ad experience and better content for a better consumer experience. And I think everyone wants that. And price, if it continues to follow the display path and go down, it's going to be harder and harder for people to create that content.
But I think this is really important, and I just would like you to touch on this, because you know, having learned about your platform for the buy side and also then from the publisher side, right? Just in the business that I've done, and a lot of the things Ron was talking about yesterday, where like we need content production solutions, et cetera. The reason you guys are successfully able to deploy and deliver against, you know, effectiveness and viewability is partly because you're as focused on your stack serving the publishing community and content creators as you are on advertisers.
100%.
How do you reconcile that? Like, where are the points in friction in making sure that you're serving both sides sort of equally and giving them fair time?
Well, I would say pricing becomes the friction, because in a model like that, you have three hands in the pot at all times. You're paying a content owner, a publisher, and then we have to take a piece, right? As opposed to a typical ad network model where you're aggregating supply and splitting with the publisher. So that's where the degradation of pricing over time, if pricing continues to decline, we're not going to be able to have these great content partnerships and be able to create so much incredible content for the web. You're going to see the content quality change, right? And it's going to go more towards, you know, a demand media type model where it's just farm it. So I think pricing is a big factor for us.
Does the acquisition of Adapt TV help you, does that help you democratize that?
Yes, for sure, because you have an open marketplace and ecosystem where the publishers that we may not be producing content for, with, or supplying to can put their supply in that they're you know, being under monetized on by other sources. So it does allow us to sort of balance it a little bit across the different buckets of supply.
Okay, awesome. Thanks, Charles.